Hi, I'm Mandy. Today I'm going to talk about ABA, but I want you to hang in there and please follow through to the end with this video because I'm probably going to say this in a really concise way that you haven't heard before. If you're a parent or guardian who is raising a child with an autism spectrum disorder or who has raised a child with an autism spectrum disorder, you've probably had ABA treatment throughout your lifespan. But there's a couple tips and tricks that I really want to convey in this video of where I think sometimes ABA gets a bad rap. So what I want to say about ABA is first, what makes up an ABA program is a three-part contingency. You can find that everywhere online if people are really talking about ABA in the correct manner. And the three-part contingency is there's a behavior, there's what comes before the behavior, which is an antecedent, and what immediately follows the behavior, which is a consequence. So where ABA protocols, I think, in my opinion, and what I've seen through the years, get a bad rap is when it comes to punishment and reinforcement techniques. And I can't say this enough, there's an art to all kinds of treatment, but there really is an art to using ABA. Everybody is on a continuum as far as therapists and behavior specialists go about, their strengths, about how they use these tools, but timing is an element too. So there's a lot of layers in this, even though it seems pretty straightforward and simplistic. It is in a lot of ways, but it's also very complicated. The second piece of where behavior plans often fail, especially those of you, again, who are raising kids who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders and have maybe been frustrated in the past about these programs, is a couple things. One, the behavior or the targeted behavior has not been defined accurately enough or specific enough. We tend to, back in the day when I first started, we used to define aggression. Right? Aggression isn't specific. We need to say exactly what the child's doing. Spitting, hitting, kicking, punching. Oftentimes those have very different functions. And the piece that goes into this is when you don't specifically enough define a targeted behavior to look to decrease or extinguish, you really can't accurately figure out the function. And function is critical. So I've heard so many people through the years talk about, especially when I've worked in schools, that they've really thought that the goal or the motivator for the child's behavior was attention seeking. How much have you heard that? And this is really hard for me to hear, and hopefully I can make more videos about this because I understand the way that kids with autism think a whole lot differently than a blanket term of attention seeking. However, if we really want to define a behavior and look at the function clearly, our observations and self-reports can be helpful, but we really need to do an assessment. And the simplest assessment out there, for those of you who have not heard this, is the MAS, or Motivational Assessment Scale. This was developed by Durand Crimmins. I think the first version was 1988, and there was a revision in 1992. This is an amazing tool that asks a number of questions specifically about the targeted behavior, and then we can devise what the function is based on the responses. We like to do this as a team. As many people as can participate in this process is really helpful in the long run. So when I talk about functions of behaviors, I refer to the way that the MAS defines the four functions. And the four functions are, maybe some of you out there know what they are. I just gave away one a little bit earlier. Attention is one. Tangible, to get something in hand. Escape demand, to get out of a task or to get away from something. And then a sensory-driven function. Here's the next layer of why good ABA gets really tricky. If we assume, by not doing a formal assessment or having more observation or whatever in-depth kind of observation/assessments we need to do, we might be led astray that the behavior in question is a single function behavior, meaning there's only one of these that come into play, right? What I said earlier, most people say it's just attention seeking. Not necessarily. Usually when I find people coming to me, when they can't use a really good reinforcement program at home that's not working anymore, chances are my first assessment piece is, hey, wait a minute, Mandy, this might be a multifunction behavior, meaning there's more than one of those 4 functions in place. So I hope that this was helpful to explain why ABA, good ABA, is really complicated and there's an art to using this.